Hi, good day again. My name is Jonathan David D. De La Cruz, and I will be discussing to you the history of science and technology. Still under the Science, Technology, and Society, the history of science and technology, chapter 1, and lesson number 2. The lesson number 2 is The Alchemist, Not a Wizard. So, minsan, pag naririnig natin yung word na alchemist, we associate it with wizards. But alchemists are actually not wizards. They're not magicians, okay? They are people who practice alchemy. Alchemy wasn't a practice of magic as many thought it was. Alchemists, these are people involved in the practice of alchemy, were experimentally skilled and theorists of understanding and answering the perennial question again, what is matter? So when we ask the question, what is matter, we usually the first people who tried to answer and attempted to answer these questions are called the alchemists. The field of chemistry, also known as the central science, came from the word alchemy. I'm a chemistry educator, a chemist also. And alchemy, my discipline, chemistry, came from the initial um, discipline is alchemy, which might mean Black Earth that symbolizes the rich and fertile lands of Egypt, the land of Chem. So pag sinabi natin Chem, Khem, the land of Chem is called Egypt, the Black Earth, because the Egyptian sand is sand, no? But the Egyptian soil is black and it's really fertile, diba? Alchemy is a philosophical manner of thinking about the material world, uh, philosophical manner thinking about the material world and changing it. Alchemists wrote different books and published it, but using allegorical codes. Anong ibig sabihin ng allegorical codes? They use allegory, not a specific term in writing their own books. Okay? And why is it that when they write books, they do not write it specifically? No, they write it allegorically because it is not publicly available for the people. They use code words called the Deknamen. Deknamen, which may mean the word written in different books, were not what it seems. Ibig sabihin, yung Deknamen, yung allegorical code na yon, pag sinulat nila yon sa ibang libro or ibang line, yung pag may specific line sila, at sinulat nila yon sa panibagong libro, pwedeng magkaiba yung definition nito. And that will still depend on the location and the specialization of the alchemy. An example that I'm going to give you is an allegorical code of the Deknamen. Example, ang nakasulat sa libro nila ay ganito. Upon the battle of Venus and Mars, Venus watched as the god of war decays. Why is that? Okay, akala mo story lang. Upon the battle of Venus and Mars, Venus watched as god of war decays. Who is the god of war? Mars. Now, what is the explanation if you decode the allegorical term Deknamen? Upon mixing the copper and iron immediately corroded. A question, which is copper, Venus or Mars? Okay, copper is Venus. Iron is Mars. Iron immediately corroded. Corrosion is a behavior of metal, of course, copper and iron. Pero pag pinagsama mo ang copper and iron, mag-corrode ang iron because of its electrochemical properties. Pero ang sinulat ng alchemist ay etong kwento na to, upon the battle of Venus and Mars. Venus watched us God. Why? Saan natin nakuha ito? Dito natin nakuha. The most known alchemical practice transcribed in many alchemical books was focused on transmutation and or changing materials into new forms. Ito yung usually or common nilang ginagamit. There are two kinds of alchemical metals. First is the noble metals. The noble metals are gold, represented by sun. Pag gold, yung noble metals, gold and silver. Pag sinulat nilang sun, ibig sabihin nun gold. Kapag sinulat nilang silver ay moon, ibig sabihin nun silver. Okay? Base metals. Mercury, of course, mercury. Copper, I see copper, I see Venus. Iron, I see Mars. So when you join copper and iron, the iron will corrode. Kaya nilagay nila, naglaban si Venus tsaka si Mars. In Jupiter, tin si Jupiter, and then lead ay si Saturn. There are also two forms of transmutation. What do we mean by transmutation ba? Ibig sabihin, changing a specific object into another form. Usually, alchemists do this because they seek to form anything into gold. There are two forms of transmutation. The first transmutation are the particulars. One transmutation. Ito yung gusto nilang gawin. Copper turning to silver. In the ancient times, is this possible? Is this possible? Ang sagot po dito ay hindi po. Many during the rise of chemistry also believe that this is not possible. But because of nuclear science and nuclear chemistry, turning another element into another element is possible, but it is very expensive. So particulars are actually very difficult or very different. Next is universals, turning anything into new form, phlogiston. These transmutations are actually possible, but it's difficult to do. Okay, and it's more expensive than the product itself, based on principles, but based on practice, hindi pa ito nagagawa until today. I mean, hanggang ngayon wala pa rin nakakagawa ng mga ganito. Ang ginagawa, gamitan lang ng transmutations ay mga reactive materials. Alchemy spread all around the world at different era and influenced by different cultures. As I have mentioned a while ago, that every culture has its own science. Ano ibig sabihin nito? Bawat kultura ay may kani-kaniyang paniniwala. Bawat kultura ay may kani-kaniyang science. In the Western belief of alchemy, meron naniniwala sila sa Philosopher's Stone. The Philosopher's Stone could give them, could turn anything into gold daw. Yun yung hinahanap ng mga alchemists. They're also searching for the elixir of life. The elixir of life is the pool of immortality because they want to become immortal. And they keep on seeking that. Western civilization yon. Pero, if you go to the ancient civilizations in Asia, there are similar things that similar concepts that they believe in. Kahit hindi pa sila nag-meet. Diba? Imagine, these people, this generation did not meet, but they have almost the same principles. In Asia, Asian alchemy was very evident in the Asian culture. Let's go to Chinese alchemy, for example. They are very tied up with the ideas of nature, earth. And that earth is a living organism. They have also detected important channels of transmission of energy and elemental metal magnets to organize systems called feng shui, feng shui. Magnets is firstly used by Chinese. This practice later led to the development of gunpowder in the 1900 AD. Similar to the conquest of elixir of life, Chinese also searched for Waidan, for immortality. So ang Western civilization ay merong hinahanap na elixir of life, ang Chinese civilization or Chinese alchemy ay may hinahanap na Waidan, which is the pool of immortality or the water of immortality. And as you can see, alchemists played a very big role in the development of gunpowder. Ang nakagawa po ng gunpowder sa China ay mga alchemist po nila. Okay? Indians in China, Indians in Asia also have their own alchemists. Indian alchemy has also shared a part on the discipline as they focus on natural medicine and preservation of health. Their Ayurvedic practice of life focus on natural products and toxicology. Ang mga Indian alchemists, meron silang tinatawag na Ayurveda. Ayurveda is a book. Hindi lang yung isang book. These are books, compilations on understanding of the universe, of the things, of the principles, and trying to explain it. No? And of course, no, these are also Indian alchemists. Now let's go to Southeast Asia. We will be discussing this further. Madami pong science ang bawat kultura. In Southeast Asia, like the Philippines, we also had alchemical practices. Babaylan. Kapag narinig natin ng babaylan, ang iisipin natin ay yung mga people who are spiritual shamans who specialize in communicating to spirits. But these people, the babaylans in the Philippines or the Catalonan, also indicated or shown alchemy behaviors of alchemists. They have practical knowledge on medicine. Familiar sila sa mga halaman. They're also familiar with scientific crafts. They're also able to predict weathers and seasons. We do not know for now if weather predicting is based on their connections with the spirit world, which they believe in, and I respect that, or based on their observations. No? Weather forecasters din po pala mga babahilans natin. So what I'm trying to say is, the first people who tried to answer the question on what is matter, where are we, when are we, are called the alchemists. Iba-iba, maaring iba-iba ang tawag across the borders or across the countries. Maaring iba-ibang tawag sa Europe, ibang tawag sa Asia and other continents of the world. But one thing is in common. These scientific people wants to answer the questions on what is matter, where are we, what is the setting of science today. This all started with them. They have asked questions, and it is also our role to keep on asking these questions. Okay? There are also Middle Eastern alchemists influenced by Aristotelian philosophy, Chinese, and Indian alchemy. As we discuss further, maintindihan natin bakit ang mga Middle Eastern alchemists ay pinagsama-samang iba't ibang paniniwala ang kanilang pinagbasihan ng kanilang alchemical practices. But one thing is for sure, their science and mathematics is deeply rooted in their religion. Indian alchemical, the Middle Eastern alchemists were more advanced in the conquest, but they focus more on mathematics and understanding the heavens. Another thing that I want to share to you, siguro we will discuss this further, is mathematics came, there's a mathematical principles that came in Europe, example in Athens. In China, there's also mathematical principle that we can, but a lot of mathematical principle came from the Middle East. Example, algebra, diba? These came from them. Uh, Persian, a Persian alchemist, Jabir ibn Hayyan, also called as Jabir, in Europe was known for authoring more than 3,000 texts about alchemical practices, including mineralogy, transmutation, and medical elixir, and invented new equipment. So what I'm trying to say again is that these alchemists of different regions, they are not magicians. They do not practice magic. They do not practice wizardry. No, but they practice science. They try at least the science during that time. The science during that time is their perspective, their belief. And I just want to clarify something, that alchemists are not wizards or witches. Okay? These are people of intellect grounded with their understanding of science and present natural phenomena. Now, what happened to alchemy? Since it started long ago sa panahon pa ng mga Egyptians. Egypt is the first civilization. It became the cradle, ang laging lundayan ng sibilisasyon dahil sa Nile River. It started there. But what happened to alchemy? Paano nawala ang alchemy? Since alchemy exhibits elements of religion and science, during the 16th to 18th century, there was an evident separation of the church and state, and alchemy had to choose between being a science or being a religion. Alchemy is a principle of scientific practice rooted in culture and religion. Generally, but not specifically, there are different cultures that practices science but have a different perspective on that matter. But generally, alchemy, the concept of alchemy and the concept of science and religion are together in alchemy, whether it be in a Middle Eastern, in Southeast Asian, in Eastern Asia, in Europe. Ang alchemy ay both a religion and science. But during the 1700s, the 18th century, it was a very challenging year for alchemy. It has to choose. Kailangan niya mamili. Kasi kung hindi, mamamatay ang prinsipyo ng alchemy. It has to choose if it will be a science or to be a religion. But since alchemy is more scientific and more logic, alchemy chose to become science. Alchemy did not completely die out, but part of it lives on in the discipline of the central science, the chemistry. Nung nawala ang alchemy, nagkaroon ng chemistry. Kasi kung may alchemy pa ngayon, wala akong trabaho ngayon. Hindi ako walang chemist, di ba? But because of the separation that happened, nagkaroon ng chemistry. Kung hindi namatay yung alchemy. Part of it lives in alchemy. By the way, I want to share to you a principle of alchemists. Ganito yon. They do not share their knowledge. Example, di ba nga kanina they're looking for the philosopher's stone. Gusto nila makahanap ng item na kayang mag-turn anything into gold. Siyempre, ayaw mong malaman yun ng mga, kasi agawan sila nag-una. Ang ginagawa nila, kumukuha lang sila ng isang apprentice sa isang community, tapos siya yung ite-train niya. Ang nangyayari minsan, nagpapatayan tong mga to. O kaya naman, may magnanakaw. Pinatay yung yung alchemist. The knowledge is not generated. The knowledge is just stored. I think this is one of the major errors of alchemy. Why alchemy died out? Because alchemy or alchemists did not share knowledge. I mean, in the ancient times, they did not share knowledge. Ano ba ang knowledge na napag-usapan natin nung previous lecture? What is knowledge? Knowledge is power. It gives you control. And that's what alchemists wanted. But I want to highlight that the death of alchemy is a proof that a knowledge kept dies, but a knowledge shared grows. That is why I ask people not to keep knowledge. Knowledge is power, yes, but it is not something to be kept. It is something that should be shared. Knowledge should be shared in order to grow. Diba? Example, whatever I discuss to you, you can share it to your friends, you can share it to your colleagues, and discuss it. And knowledge grows. And if I die, nakuha ko lang din naman to, di ba? If the person that I got this dies, he has me, di ba? So what I'm trying to say is, knowledge is generated continually if knowledge is shared. But knowledge dies out if knowledge is kept. That's why we have research publications, journal articles, books, to show and to generate knowledge. Okay? Chemistry continues to practice some of its alchemical roots, but with more scientific foundation. Chemistry, again, when alchemy died, chemistry was born. But chemistry is not entirely similar with alchemy, but we still practice similar things like heating, experimentations, writing the important notes to discuss to experimentations and such, observations. So that is alchemy. So thank you again for listening for the discussion on alchemy. Now, I want to break a notion that alchemists are not wizards. Alchemists are people who are scientifically knowledgeable on how the world and how the universe works. And they try to ask questions and tries to answer it. Maaring nagkamali sila ng mga sagot nila, pero yun yung kayang ma-atim or marating ng kanilang pananaw. Okay? So, I hope that you learned something in discussing the alchemists. Again, alchemists are not wizards. Alchemists are not only concentrated in one culture, but there are different sciences across the globe, and that is depending on the culture as well. And the science that we have today, mathematics, chemistry, physics, is also largely contributed by alchemists. And lastly, knowledge is not kept alone. Knowledge is shared. Pero hindi ko sinasabing magkopyahan. Sabi ko lang, mag-share kayo ng knowledge ninyo. You can talk about your knowledge with each other. So, I hope that you learned a lot in this lecture. Should you have any questions, feel free to comment down below on the comment section, and I will try to answer that on a video, on a collective video. And thank you again. And next video, we will be talking about the chapter 1, lesson 3, the natural philosophers. So from alchemists to natural philosophers. So see you again. Thank you, and God be with you.